should be good to go, but you're muted.
Okay, give me a moment here. I think I might need to go outside. I've got some background noise. Here. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Reb Anderson. I'm going to be our facilitator today, and we don't have any official agenda today. We are just, oh, now maybe it's worse outside. Can you all hear the wind, or is it okay?
We hear the wind.
You hear the wind. All right.
Although it's nice to be seeing where your outside looks like.
Well, and we don't have smoke for the first time in like 3 weeks. So
that's awesome news.
Okay, I think I found myself a quiet space. Sorry about that. So we have no formal presentation today. We just have informal conversation. So we could start with announcements, and then I always like to do just a round of introductions so that those of us who don't know each other can say hi and get to know each other. Do we want to do announcements first and then go through introductions? Because I know sometimes introductions can kind of like organically lead to more conversation, which is great.
So Reb, I've got one. I'll post it in the chat. I was part of an I'm trying to remember what ICSD is. I believe it is. Where's the rest of my? Anyway, it's the International Conference on Sustainable Development, I think. And I was on a plenary with some other people who don't tend to be in the clean community, who I'll have to try and find the name of Aveda's last name. She's at ASU, just rocking my world. You know, every now and then I get one of these people. Megan Bang blew my mind a little while ago. Aveda rocked it hard yesterday with just some of what's coming out of the international education research on climate change education. And it should be really inspiring and informative to what we're doing, because we're talking about much larger structural changes to education in order to generate sustainable development and climate outcomes, because actually our education system is contributing to the worldview that propagates biodiversity loss, climate change, and a lot of other planetary challenges. And so if we don't change the actual underlying structures of education, we'll still maybe talk about the topic, but the underlying worldview is replicated and more non-sustainable practices are propagated. Really awesome. I mean, I'd love to get into literature. I think that having Aveda and Kirsten Kwok and Rudiki come and talk with us, because it's really fresh thinking and it's coming from the international space. So just something I would encourage us to do. It was an awesome panel.
Yes, welcome to the 5th session of the 8th Annual International
Conference. Yeah, that. We have confirmation you got it.
I did, yeah. Can you put the names of the folks you're talking about, and like maybe is there a website into the chat too for a little more context?
Yep. I'll put everybody. I'll get there.
Yeah, that sounds great to get their perspectives on a future call.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just like, there's no action here, Frank. This is just a FYI.
You got it.
Great, thanks.
Are we done with that one? Can I do an announcement?
Go for it, Katie.
So we've been working on, and we finally have the pages live, and I'm going to work this afternoon on getting marketing materials out there for our webinar series is coming up starting in the first week of October. And then we also are launching the Clean Elementary collection. So we have some pages that we've put together on this page, and we're still working on it. We're going to be launching things over the next month or so here. But we have the first and last of the links on this are live right now. So we have the support pages for how to sort of walking through how to teach climate at the elementary level on the first button. And then the last button are the link to the actual resources that are in the collection now for elementary level. And I think we ended up with about 65 at the start of the launch. And then we have somebody looking through the collection to see if some of our middle school resources could be tagged at lower levels. So we may add more. And then as we continue to do review camps into the future, we're going to keep adding more. We'll have a group that does elementary specific every time. So we'll keep adding more to this, but those are the two that are live. And then hopefully by this afternoon, the Clean webinar, I think it links to the webinar page, but we should have the registration links for those up, and advertising for, we'll have a webinar specific to teaching clean at elementary levels coming into our series for the first time this fall, and then going forward it'll be hopefully a regular one we continue doing. So yeah, pretty excited about that. It's still, like I said, a little bit in work mode, but hopefully by even tomorrow it'll be pretty well ready to go, except for, like I said, 1 or 2 things that we're working on, trying to align it with NGSS and stuff like that in the middle there. So pretty excited about that.
And Katie, how many elementary resources were added to the collection for the elementary round?
Through the review camp, we added 40, and we had 25 in there that were already tagged at elementary level from previous review camps. So that's why we ended up with 65 to launch the collection. So 40 came through the review camp.
Awesome.
Thanks, Katie. I have that down. I'm going to send it out in our teacher newsletter that goes out, I think, October 6th.
Great, and Reb, you're on my list, so I will send you a more specific announcement this afternoon that you can use for that. So
okay, 60 to 70 words. That's what I need.
Cool, thanks. I'll have the webinar and then something about elementary, so you can use both or however you want, but I'll try to keep them. The webinars I always keep real short, so I'll do the same for the elementary thing.
Okay, sounds good.
And as a follow-up, Katie, you're already in contact with Liz about getting the word out, right?
Yeah, so I let her know we did, and Reb too, I let them know when we did, since what did we launch a few weeks ago, and I let them know the webinars and all of this were coming up as well. So Liz actually, I think she emailed me yesterday to say, it was on my calendar to check in with you this week, and I was like, it's not quite ready. So yes, I should be emailing her this afternoon as well.
And if anyone else has ideas how to market to elementary, it's new to us. It's not really our forte. We usually don't work with elementary or support teachers. So if any of you have ideas how to reach those teachers, let us know.
We get them despite ourselves. Like, we definitely do teacher advertising, mainly on Facebook, and it's all driven by what's the cheapest click that you can get. And we have to try not, the algorithm keeps trying to push us towards elementary because it's just such a huge market there. And we're like, no, our resources aren't for elementary. So we get them despite ourselves. So I'd be happy to include it. I'm sure the elementary teachers in our network would love it if we shared something for them specifically for once. But if you have a small budget, I think it can go a long way.
That would be awesome.
We used to have more robust partnerships with NEA because the NSTA is not really where the teachers of science go. It's much more on the NEA side. So it's been a while since we've had somebody at NEA who really cared about this portfolio. So, but that's really the professional society that aligns with elementary teachers and those networks and union work.
Yeah, and so that's something that now that we have it ready to go, I'm going to start looking into. We have some ideas from some of the elementary teachers who came through the review camps, and Frank's NEA idea, and a couple others from some other sources as well, to look into kind of where and how to market this. But other ideas are totally welcome. And Patrick, I think, put a really good one into the chat. Pre-service teachers programs would probably be another good route to go with this as well. So yeah, other ideas for reaching specifically elementary teachers would be welcome, because as Reb pointed out, our focus has also been on secondary, and so most of our marketing has been focused there as well.
I just found this page, sorry Eric, I just found this page on NEA from June about climate change education, essential information for educators. I didn't even know this was there. So I don't know who I like that they suggest that NOAA is a great place to go for information, for further reading. But
Good.
you know, but yeah, I agree. But I can't unpack who put this up there, how you would you know, get to the people that promote this. So you know, I would encourage us to try and dig in there.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for putting that in the chat, Frank. I'll look into that further. Or
Sure.
Naomi and I will.
Okay.
Hey, Eric, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Just a couple, one connector to what we're talking about, and then a few quick announcements as well. So just a reminder that CRS, Community Resources for Science in Bay Area, is starting a series of PD workshops kicking off Thursday. And it happens that the focus of the Thursday workshop is K-5 concepts and climate change, even though it's not NGSS sort of embedded explicitly. Oakland Unified is going to spearhead a conversation around that. So, you know, on the ground, if there's interest in kind of continuing and exploring that, I think Oakland is, while resource constrained, also being very proactive in their approach. They actually started an energy and climate science literacy working group that has 4 subgroups, an environmental justice caucus, kind of an action-oriented caucus, and a couple more. Outdoor education is an area of focus. So would invite you to share that with folks. I'll stick the link in the chat again. And then just 2 quick announcements, and then maybe something to loop back around if there's time in the general conversation. Frank, I signed up for the thing tomorrow, the ACE conference, not your ACE group, our facilitator, but the, let's see, what is it, Frank? The
Action for Climate Empowerment.
Yes,
ACE
thank
dialogue.
you. It's a UN. Yeah, so I'm not sure what to expect. It's a 3-hour United Nations driven project. So we'll see. It should be interesting, but thanks for the heads up on that, Frank.
Sure.
And then in tandem, if folks are interested, when it rains, it pours, Project Drawdown is having a 101 workshop tomorrow from 9 to 10, just basically kind of the nuts and bolts of what Project Drawdown does, what they focus on, you know, why, sort of the metrics, I believe. And I think it's being driven or led by the executive director of Project Drawdown. So, and it's free and open, so if folks are interested.
Is that for their education resources or for drawdown, like overall?
I got a sense it was Drawdown overall, sort of a 101, like, you know, how they, again, maybe check the website, so I'm not sort of speaking incorrectly, but I believe it was how they shape their thinking, you know, where they draw their metrics from, why they think this bullet list are the top things that we should be doing, you know, with respect to solving the climate crisis. So I thought it looked interesting. And I think that they have a recurring, you know, events page. There's like there were 3 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. So there's a lot that they're doing. And then the last thing, just connecting the dots with Tamara's topic last week on professional development. Community Resources for Science is exploring the idea of starting our own professional learning community, potentially in partnership with the Oakland Unified School District. And the idea would be, also Chabot Space and Science Center might be involved. The idea would be, we're trying to figure out the best approach. So kind of listening to what Tamara was saying last week about funding and how to do that. And also we want the teachers to choose their path. At the same time, there's a lot of interest in energy and climate science literacy. And like I said, Oakland has this you know, huge group already that they've started, but it's resource constrained. So connecting the dots, the idea might be to start a high school PLC with Oakland teachers explicitly focused on climate change, but it would be kind of interdisciplinary by design, rather than just the science teachers. So that's kind of, I'm trying to connect the dots to start to make that happen. But one thing, I might have shared this at a past meeting, but I had a conversation with Laura Tucker maybe a month ago, and this is a really solid set of curriculum that is interdisciplinary by design. And I pitched the proposal that maybe this could be turned into an online experience. And she thought that was, given COVID and everything we're doing, plus carbon footprint, you know, lowering that by doing this online with students could be interesting. So again, I don't know the approach of a PLC. Do you focus them and say, this is what we want to do, and here's a project we could start with, very concrete and discrete project? Or do you back off and go, what do you want to do as teachers, as a learning community? So, and maybe you can do both, but I just kind of throw that out there for And if folks are interested in exploring that offline, I'd welcome that as well.
Well, thanks, Eric. If there's links for those, the drawdown and then I don't know, is the professional learning community you're talking about not something that's established yet? You're just sort of exploring it.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of tandem efforts happening right now. So this idea of combining them is new, but I can certainly share links to the individual strands of work. And then, you know, the idea might be to connect the dots. So sure.
Cool.
If I could mention.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Rebecca. Let's see. This is a really busy week. We're 3 days away from the climate strikes, or the things by Fridays for the Future. Awful lot going on there. And concurrently, as Jen's not on the call, I hope she doesn't mind, I'll do a big shout out. Youth Have Power is really quite incredible and really kicking off. There'll be events starting now, I mean, and all down through December. We've got many schools that are involved in that, and it's quite good. One of the things there is it's primarily geared toward high schoolers, and that's great. You know, connecting with the high schoolers. The Lowell middle school students, it's they're middle school students connecting with the high schoolers. At the same time, it's drawing in all the kids from the elementary school coming in from 6th grade. So our Zoom calls have been really pretty amazing, of both bringing in the 6th graders who are starting out on climate action. You know, they've been doing education at Lowell, but now it's time for action. And at the same time, having the 8th graders who are on Twitter, that are doing YouTube videos. They're connecting with the high schoolers. They're teaching. I mean, a lot of it is teaching the elementary school students at the schools. So that's quite a bit. And of course, just for Anna and Katie, and wherever we can help, I'd say in what we've been reaching over the last 20 years, roughly 40% are high school, elementary school students and teachers. I mean, obviously science festivals, science fairs, things like that. I mean, the biggest draw you get is elementary school and families of elementary school. So we've got, you know, with the resources we brought last month and so on, but just so much is going on with youth action. With youth action, it's kind of overwhelming in a good way of the direction the different students are going. And again, big shout out for Jen and the Wild Center for organizing these events. They're really good. Lastly, one just to mention, by the way, Eric, we really should check in sometime, because there has been quite a lot with the Oakland Unified School District. Really good teachers, retired teachers. The person who does STEM is wonderful. But yet in these meetings that I've been to, we got blowback from the administrator telling us that we're not going to teach in elementary school. So, I mean, it was, you know, it gets pretty wild, right? So we want to work toward that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, for mentioning you work with a lot of, I'm going to reach out to you for some of our marketing as well then. So that's a really good point, that those science fairs are often more of that age range. So definitely agree with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
I just want to draw your attention to one thing I also put in there for Connect for Climate. On Friday, they have a Youth for Climate live virtual series, the 4th episode on driving nature-based solutions. So it's at 10 o'clock Eastern time. So it's just an event you might want to track. They're a great international partner. Yes.
Yeah, they reached out to us as well. And
Did you say you put that in the chat, Frank? Oh, the Youth for Climate one, that one.
Yeah. Youth for Climate. Connect for Climate has the 4th Youth for Climate live virtual series.
Thanks.
Sure.
And I put the Wild Center's Youth Have Power link in the chat as well.
Thanks on that, Rebecca. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great program. Other announcements. There's a lot happening.
I got one other one. October 22nd at 1 o'clock Eastern time, please put a hold if you want to participate in the closing session of the US ACE strategy framework development. That's where we're going to launch the community review. So please hold October 22nd at 1 o'clock Eastern if you want to participate. We haven't put together all we have right now is a date. But we will have a version of the framework ready for you to review and send it out to the community. More information will be held, but please just, hold the date, please.
Got it.
October 22nd.
Right now.
Yeah, reserve the time, please. 1 to 4 o'clock Eastern time would be good. We might shrink it just to 2 hours. I mean, if somebody significant joins us, this thing's gaining steam. We would want to have you, we wouldn't want to shrink it. So just hold 3 hours, 1 to 4, just in case. We'll see. I'm done.
Shoot, and I have an announcement, but I'm trying to find the link. Well, I'll paste in the link in a second. I'll share the announcement right now. This is, I think I sent it out last week to the Clean List, but we have a big live stream event coming up tonight called Enough 2020, and this is all about motivating young people to get out and vote pro-climate and register to vote for this election. So it is this evening at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, and it's going to be a 2-hour event. We've got some really great panelists lined up and guest speakers, and yeah, it's going to be really great. So target audience is like high school, maybe to like early 20s demographic. So I will chat that into. Any other announcements?
I don't have another announcement. If nobody else has any more, please jump in if you do. But I wanted to ask Eric about the CLP he mentioned in the Oakland Unified School District down there, and I was just curious, or I just wanted to kind of follow up on that because I didn't get a chance to before, and just say if you need any I don't know, you mentioned they were having possibly some events in the next couple of days or whatever. If you need somebody to just jump into something and mention clean, happy to do that. Just let me know. But I also wanted to let you know as you think about that learning community and that, and if clean can kind of be a resource for you or anything, just sort of wanted you to know that I do that sometimes with folks. We do our regular PD series, but if we can get connected with actual district level folks and do PD at that level, I like to do that as well if possible. So if that's something that they might be interested in, just wanted to let you know we can connect offline for that. So
yeah, Katie, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. And I definitely think having Clean be sort of a backbone resource and potentially help drive would be a great partnership. And I think the group would welcome that. And kind of hearing what Jim was saying about the pushback at K-5, which is interesting, because in some ways, K-5 has more resource because they have the FOSS kits and the rollout to KnowUSD already built in, but the high school is sort of Wild West. They don't really have a set curriculum that addresses climate. There's been some student-driven things that actually have changed district policy, which is really interesting. The students said, we want climate, a K-12 across the district. And as a result, this ECCL, Energy and Climate Literacy Group, got started, but then there was a lot of pullback on staff with Oakland. They consolidated. They took the science department, essentially gutted it, and combined it with other, with math and other groups, and less staff. So thanks, Katie, and I'll definitely would like to follow up. And being aware of Clean, even integrating that into their regular cycle of discussion and exploration would be great.
Yeah, and that's another thing, just to sort of let other folks know too, that we do some of that. We can't do it for everyone everywhere, but to some extent I can help out with some amount of PD and other things like that at the district level. And we are working to try to do more of marketing at the district level as well. We have a student working on trying to help us gather the contact information for at least some of the big districts in each state. So that's something we have been kind of thinking about and are now working towards trying to do more of that, within district marketing if possible, but we'll see how it goes. It just kind of, I think it'd be better, like you said, because each district's different in how they're doing things, and even within that, each school, you know, and all of that. So we're thinking it might be a little bit easier to reach folks than just through some of the marketing we've been doing at sort of bigger national level lists like Clean and stuff like that. So we'll see, but that's something that we are. So if anybody knows of districts that like Oakland that maybe wouldn't be on like our list in the first place if we're just looking at big districts, but are doing things more related to climate and this might be of interest to them, like just let me know. Just wanted to throw that out there.
And I think, I mean, there is a lot. Oakland Unified School District, or the district, is a good case study. There's a great deal there. Factors within it. So I mean, if we get some things from the top parts of the district, the people more in the middle are more in favor. They wanted to see a lot of things happen and still slide them in. There's a lot of retired teachers who actually make a lot of things happen. There are specific teachers who are really push on things, and they're, for instance, they're working with Green Ninja. It's a great program out of San Jose State University. And then like one of the discussions I was having with the top person from the district, when elementary school kids, this is going to scare them, they can't handle it, they can't understand it, all this kind of thing. And they said, and I started to show her photographs of students who have been longtime volunteers in mobile climate science labs who taught to thousands and thousands of people, and they're African American kids who started when they were in the 3rd grade. This is one of your students who's teaching climate change throughout the Bay Area. I don't know how to explain that, given what you said is impossible, right? And that kind of put them back on their heel a little bit. It's meant to be friendly. Your students are better than you might think, and I think there's a lot that the students have. The students can prove what should happen, and that helps the teachers. So anyway, it's an interesting place. And by the way, also, Eric has been part of the good that has happened in Oakland. People, as I mentioned before, specifically, I mean, this is a place I know. I went to high school in Oakland. That Oakland does not have very good science labs. It doesn't teach very much. But Chabot Space and Science Center, the new place, was built with the promise and the money that it would be the place that the students could go up and get education. With Eric and the other teachers there, it has played that role. It is the place to go get climate education when not. So anyway, just some of the details within it. It's often working with friendly forces and trying to have the people who oppose kind of back off a little bit. Another one I should mention is the district has a very strong statement on the district that we should be teaching climate change. I mean, an official statement. And also, let's get out that statement. It does not say half the schools can't teach it. It doesn't say there's no introduction in an elementary school to energy and the atmospheres and things. I mean, again, it's kind of a friendly discussion with, are we saying that the first introduction to climate change is in the 6th grade? I mean, I don't understand that to the basics of the science. So anyway, interesting case study that, and if you and I and Eric were in on it, if that can help Clean and be a way of helping to push things forward elsewhere, I think it's a good one. Thanks.
Yeah. I'm realizing that we haven't actually done a round of introductions yet, and we've had some folks talking and some folks talking less. So I'd love to go around and let everyone give a chance to introduce themselves and what work they do. And then maybe as one icebreaker question, you could share one thing that gives you hope right now. So does that sound good? We can all go around and give our introductions. Does someone want to go first? I don't think I am actually ready to go first. I need to think about it a sec.
I can go first.
Thanks, Katie.
I'm Katie Boyd. I work at the Cooperative Institute for Research in Environmental Sciences in their Education and Outreach group, but I'm also the Clean Program Manager. That's one of the projects we manage there. And something that has given me hope lately, strangely enough, has actually been COVID, because it's really interrupted our systems enough that I feel like you know, there's part of me that has the sort of negative attitude that maybe we'll just go back to normal and not fix things. But there's part of me that's very hopeful right now that maybe with this disruption, we might be able to actually like do more to rebuild back better and more sustainably. So strangely enough, as awful as it is, and as much as I'm struggling to deal with the pandemic and working from home issues and mental health struggle and all of that, there's part of it that gives me hope in terms of climate solutions. So try to keep that. Are we doing just popcorn then, or should I pick?
Well, yeah, why don't you pass it to somebody?
Frank, you're on my screen first. Do you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm Frank Niepold. Does anybody not know me? No. So I'll keep it short. What gives me hope is kind of what I alluded to at the beginning of this call, is that the more we dig into education in all its forms, it is a powerful tool for changing the way people think, which is how we can change the way people operate within the planetary system we call home. And it's big. It's so big, but it's about the right scale for what was before us. And so the more I learn about this, the more power I see. It brings me tremendous hope that we could actually use a very, 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 very powerful tool, but we got to do some very different things in order for it to be brought to bear.
You're here. Thanks, Frank. Do you want to pass it to someone?
Oh, yeah. Wendy. Those clouds just call me.
Who doesn't like a nice sky full of modest clouds? Hi, everybody. Wendy Abchar, AMS Education Director, meteorologist by trade, current member of the Clean Board, which is awesome. I'll be honest, it's been a rough patch, and I am a inherently optimistic person, and it's been a little dark lately. I'm not my perky self. I'm struggling to hold it together, but I'm holding it together because there is hope, and I have a strong support network, which thank goodness. Honestly, during the last few days where it's been tough, I've found my biggest hope in small children and mammals who are going about their lives with the same zest and enthusiasm and just the power of living and taking care of business and doing what needs to be done and being your whole authentic self without the weight of the world on your shoulders. I got to spend a little time around under 1-year-old that's, you know, walking and finding words and learning to interact with fellow humans and isn't aware of all the things on our mind, and seeing that promise of a new person at that early stage is always a very hopeful place to see our future. I'll popcorn it over to Amy.
Hi there, everybody. I was just about to put something absurd in the chat box for you, but for you especially, Wendy, it was you'll see, it's animals hugging humans. I think it'll make you feel better. But yeah, my name is Amy Frame. I work out in California with Eric and Bill and a couple of other people here. I work at 10 Strands, and I think what is a couple of things, I guess, just are giving me hope. And one is we're doing this webinar series about environmental literacy, and people are coming out of the woodwork to join up for that. So, you know, it's kind of a small world in this, and there are people showing up in all sorts of districts and counties and random schools across the state that are super passionate about this, and it's really exciting to see and to figure out what to do with that energy. Like, I think kind of comes up when the students show so much passion about it. You're like, okay, now I'm morally obligated to, like, you know, do everything that I can to channel this and to nurture it, you know, since that is the hope. And so, yeah, so that's my hope. Did I answer the questions? I think so. Okay, I pass it to I don't know, to you, Patrick, because of the background. I can't resist either.
All right, thanks, Amy. So I'm Patrick Chandler. I'm a PhD student at the University of Colorado in Boulder and focused on what it means to bring art and science together to create and catalyze community action around environmental and social justice issues. I'm also the coordinator for the Clean Network. And hey, as a reminder, if you have presenters that you'd like to present, have them give me a holler. We could use a few more this fall. Hope. I've kind of mixed feelings about hope at the moment. I mean, I was pretty hopeful under Obama and it didn't get much done. And so I feel like this realm of how to connect hope and action is really important to me right now, and not leaning too hard on hope alone. But I've been interviewing leaders and facilitators of art science partnerships around the country for some of my research. There's some really badass projects going on and some really amazing people that are bridging these realms of head and heart and creating that hope to action system. And it's been good to see that. And I will pass it over to Eric.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, kind of a lot of what you all were mentioning are pieces of where I'm at. I tend to be the kind of person that's anxious about the future and dwells in the past. So I'm trying to take my sort of climate hat and combine it to sort of focus on the now. And I think where I have hope. So just quick background for me. I was 22 years at Chabot Space and Science Center. Have been in the climate education and learning space for about 30. So definitely passionate about that. So areas of hope, two things kind of, Katie mentioned one thing, which is COVID disrupted us. And all of a sudden I have an opportunity to kind of reach out to new clans and tribes like you and go, wow, this is so cool. This is all happening. It's a world that I just was too immersed in the working world to sort of, be part of. So it's a fascinating opportunity and then this virtual, Amy and I had a conversation a month ago that we can drop in to just about anything, like this UN conference, which when I was in college, I'm like, wow, I'd love to get involved in the UN. And so whether or not it goes somewhere, it's a learning opportunity and an opportunity to connect the dots. The other thing that gives me tremendous hope is this convergence of movements and large-scale things like the diversification of the climate movement and the youth driving it and being driven by girls and women. That's a new, huge opportunity. And then Black Lives Movement. When I took the climate reality training a couple months ago with Al Gore, that was a huge part of the conversation, was COVID and Black Lives Matter, and how do we connect that with the climate movement to create something that's much more robust and meaningful. So that gives me tremendous hope. And then the last piece is, I think we had a conversation here a couple of weeks ago about youth want solutions. They want to be presented with an opportunity to see a positive future. And yes, it's doom and gloom and the fires, like Wendy, get me down tremendously. Like, we knew this was gonna happen, 40 years ago. It's not new information, but people just don't believe it. So it's tremendously frustrating, but at the same time, there's opportunity to make change. So I'm in that space of this is so important we do it, but the conversation is broadening. And so just to kind of leave it hopeful, that's where I get energized. And I will pass it to, gosh, who's left? Is it Devarati?
Vardy.
Yes, Devardi or Devaradi, however you want to say it. You will not butcher it, but butcher is not my name. So,
Hi, Devardi.
Hi. I agree with Wendy. These are a little bit tougher times for me too, and I'm pretty resilient from where I grew up and from what I have experienced in the past. What gives me hope is I'm usually 100% researcher, researching about curricular and instruction, ways of instruction for climate literacy, climate content, and earth science content. But this semester, I got a chance to teach a undergraduate course focused on climate literacy. And I think the youth that I am engaging with are my source of hope. Because yes, they are eager for action. They also want to talk policy, something that I have started taking interest in, because they ask very good questions about it. And sometimes they also make things very amusing, because none of them knows what a floppy disk is. And it was just a nice moment of thinking, oh, I'm that old and you do not know what a floppy disk is. But yes, most of my hope is derived from them, a group of 40 students who I see in various spaces, some virtual, some face-to-face, and some somewhere in between. And Wendy, it's a small world. One of your contributors, Lindsay, is my TA.
Oh, awesome. Say hi.
She was so excited because she was reading BAM, and I was like, oh. And then we talked about Wendy, and then we were so excited. She's from Colorado too. So we found something to bond about.
That's fantastic. See, that made me happy. That's my first big smile of the day.
I knew.
Thanks, Devardi. Let's see. Anna, you haven't gone yet.
No, thank you. It's a really good question, Rep, to ask here. And again, most of you know me, or I think everyone knows me, so I'm not going to talk much about my background, but yeah, it's interesting to try to find these hope pieces. And I think, Katie, it was great to hear what you've been saying. I do also, in the same way, weird way, having hurricanes, flooding, and wildfires all come together provides an opportunity to say, no, it's happening everywhere, and, listen and look at the news. And I think it raises a topic to awareness that is sometimes easy to just not worry about, or like for people that don't want to believe, to just discard. But I think it's just so clearly gripping our country and the world that it's, together with what Katie, you said, it's maybe an opportunity to change. And what gives me hope is, yesterday I was looking in the Yale Climate Communications, I was looking for some piece of information, but I came across this report that youth across the aisle, both Republican and Democrat, are a lot more accepting, and especially Republicans are, they break out age groups in their different reports, and that climate change is not a question for the younger generation of Republican youth, which it feels like we really need across the aisle work here, and I hope that's going to be possible in the future, maybe with a not so divisive candidate. I hope. And so anyway, that's my hope here. But lots of dark spots and good to look for the hope.
Thanks, Anna. Jim, I think you might be our last one.
Thanks, Rebbe. I'll bring it up here at the end. So Jim Callahan, ClimateChangeEducation.org. Coming up with the hope, that's the easy one. I would go with what Wendy and Devardi, and I think others have said, Derek has said, is it's working with kids. I mean, it's I can't imagine having been done this for 20 years, where I have the fortune of not only trying to bring up, making resources and lead volunteers and everything, but being with kids, getting to see the spark, see their face, connect with them, learn from them. And there's that one of when you meet a climate activist who's 30 years old now, and they meet you and they remember you. You're the one who got me started on this. I remember having a blast and getting that climate is something that's important and there's something you can do about. I remember that, and bring your kids, or sometimes you'll meet them because they're bringing their kids by. So it's just something. It's so important to be connected to somebody if you can't do it yourself to be among the kids. And I guess maybe one other one is you can get on the side of the bed on when everything's more positive and you want to we're going to do good things, and then there's some times when things do seem pretty gloomy. But then I think about people like you all of you, and what you do, that if it wasn't for what we are doing, can you imagine how bad it would be? I mean, sometimes you can't make this world all it is, and you can't make humanity is. We can fight for the animals and the trees and the kids and the poor people, and we have to, because we're privileged to have the power to do things. But how bad would it be if the people who are on this call weren't doing what we do, you do every day? So maybe you guys give me hope. Thank you. It's you guys who give me hope. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
And I can share. So I'm Reb Anderson, Director of Education at ACE, Alliance for Climate Education. And I think similar to what a lot of you all have said, and echoing what you said, Jim, well, I guess just want to back up and echo also what you said, Wendy, which is like, it has been just acknowledging that this has been like one of our darker, like 2020 has been it's been a year. And this fall has been really rough in California, and just really it's struggling to live under smoke for like 3 weeks or so now. And we've gotten a couple glimmers of good days, which is sort of showing us like hopefully we're going to come out of it. So both feeling glad that like we are not among the ones whose house and town have burned down, as so many have, but also it's just been awful being under smoke for about 3 weeks straight. And like, are you wearing your mask because of COVID or because of the smoke, or like do you just live in an N95 now? Like just terrible. And so I'd say the thing that gives me hope is we have our fellowship program with about 170 fellows from 5 different states. And they're doing a lot of voter engagement work in the semester this fall. And so they are so fired up. They are writing and sending like almost 200,000 postcards to unregistered voters in key states. They're doing text banking activities, and then some of last Friday we did our first phone banking shift, and we called voters in Western Pennsylvania, and we did not have our current high school fellows do phone banking, but we invited some of our alumni to come back and do phone banking, and this one alum who I hadn't talked to in probably 5 years, Mikey Lampel from New York City. He was in the Vic Barrett's fellowship class in 2015. And Vic is now working with ACE, so they were there on the phone banking shift together. And like he has been phone banking like all summer as for the upcoming election. And so he basically like led the phone banking and demonstrated like how to have a good phone banking call, which is really hard actually. Phone banking it's like one of my private like personal fears is calling strangers. So it's just really amazing to see this young person who has like taken some of the tools that we gave him 5 years ago and then just like really grown with it and taken off with it in this whole his own direction. So that was a really cool moment. Sorry for all the pings I've been getting in the background. It looks like we do have someone joining us on the phone, a 310 number.
Oh, hey there. This is Scott Thatch from the Alliance to Save Energy. I'm actually in DC, but my phone is still left over from my Los Angeles days. So I've been meaning to join these calls for a long time. And Jim, who I'm sorry, I was getting off the Zoom call, as is the case so often. And I just joined to hear your remarks and Jim's remarks before you. So I'm really glad finally to be part of this conversation. I don't want to take up too much time, but I'm really delighted to be part of this community and hopefully to be more engaged going forward.
Scott, thanks for joining. We're just doing we kind of did the call backwards today, and we did announcements, and then we were doing a round of introductions, and also sharing one thing that gives us hope. So you are actually the last one. If you want to say anything more about your role and what you do at Alliance to Save Energy, I think we've
Sure.
a long time ago, and something that gives you hope.
Okay, yeah. I've been, the Alliance to Save Energy is a nonprofit that advocates for energy efficiency for a number of reasons: social equity, economic growth, secure energy security. But for me and for most of the people, since I lead the education team at the Alliance, most of the people on my team and most of the people that we work with in the educational community are really, in it for climate change. And so thankfully, over the last 7 or so years since I've been leading the education programs, we've been moving more and more in that direction. And now we have benchmarks that directly address climate change. And we work a lot in California, where that's obviously a huge deal for all the reasons, the normal reasons and then the reasons of the moment. And I'm with everyone else that it's been a dark year, and it's been a series of dark years. I'm a big believer that it's darkest before the dawn. I just can't believe how dark it gets. So it'll be a heck of a dawn by the end of this. The thing that gives me hope is the kids that we work with. That's probably a pretty generic sentiment, but it's one that I really feel viscerally that that the students that we work with, as hard as it is with the way that the power is manipulated, in the current kind of power structure in DC and other places, when you see how passionate, how informed, how smart, how engaged the students that are coming up through our programs now are, I have no doubt that the future will be in good hands when they come of age. And I'm also just really thankful to be part of a community that cares and that not only leads, but reaches back to create the next generation of leaders. And there are so many of us, and there's so many smart, great, dedicated people doing good work on so many fronts. And I am really thankful to be part of that community.
That's awesome. Thanks, Scott. Good to have you.
Thanks.
We just have a few minutes left. Are there any other thoughts, questions, topics for future conversation?
I wanted to just throw out there that I really appreciated everybody sharing kind of how they've been feeling. Anna, in our group meeting recently, mentioned that we're, right at this sort of 6-month mark of working remotely. And that's often a mark that has been, I was reading about this in an article from someone who works in like disaster areas, and she was saying like the 6-month mark is really a kind of a hard hump to get over when you're in these kinds of like not great situations and you're just trying to kind of make it through. And 6 months is kind of a hard one to move past. And so Anna was sort of mentioning this as well, and kind of sounds like everyone on the call today was kind of feeling that, and I'm feeling that as well. So just wanted to say thanks for sharing, and just put out there to Patrick that I'm really glad we were really good about trying to keep some of the informal discussion days so that we can have some of this sharing time. And maybe our next informal discussion, we might want to kind of focus on how people are feeling and dealing with COVID now. We had some discussions of that in the spring, and I'm thinking maybe it'd be good to kind of come back to that maybe in our next discussion.
Yeah, some what are we doing differently? How are we coping? Yeah, I think that can be really beneficial.
Katie, is that a paper about the 6-month hump that you could share? Because I'm part of the AMS team that's taking care of the staff for what we used to call the workplace reopening, but it means nothing because there's no reopening of the physical facility on the horizon, and we've never stopped working. In fact, we're all working harder than ever. So the security name is horrible, but we're talking about these issues.
So Wendy, I'm going to be 100% honest, since you've asked me and you're calling me out. It was actually a Twitter thread.
Well, hey,
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm putting the link to it
there's
in the
something behind that.
yeah, and I follow a lot of like scientists and social scientists on Twitter, so I assume, you know, this is possibly, it's a professor, so I assume she knows what she's talking about. So anyways, I did put the link.
Well, now we have to go find it because
I put the link in the chat, so if you want to see it, you're welcome to. Yeah.
I mean, it's not surprising the 6-month hump. I was on the call I was on yesterday. Some of the leadership has been able to go into the office once or twice a week, 4 months now. And they were all talking about how nice that was. And I said, I haven't been to the office or seen my staff in 193 days. And it's probably going to be another 193 before I do. Just throwing that out there in the mix. There's no Band-Aid. It's just endless remote. So.
And I know like my sister has a job where she appreciates being remote because so much of her job is just kind of like doing things on the computer, and she can mix it up and do things at home and do that and whatever. So much of my job is very collaborative and working with the folks in my group that we're really struggling, you know? So I think it also depends like what situation you're in. Like I'm struggling with the remote working. Whereas I know some other people, it's like, oh, this is nice, you know? So yeah, definitely it's just kind of what situation you're in, but definitely a struggle for some of us that are doing a lot of meetings all the time, Zoom calls, yeah.
I want to draw you guys' attention to the America's Pledge report, because while we pay attention to the wildfires and the droughts and the hurricanes and the, you know, just you keep on naming it, right? All the impacts. There's another story that's out there, which is we're actually decarbonizing in this country. We're one of the only countries in the world that's actually decarbonizing, and it's not because of national leadership, obviously. It's because of subnational leadership, states, counties, mayors, you know, cities, and you know, and so if that quote there, you know, with aggressive federal re-engagement starting in 2021, we could actually hit a 49% reduction in emissions below 2005 levels. You know, by 2030. That's, and we're already on our way to having a 37%. So it's not like we're doing nothing, but it's invisible. I'm just going back to something we learned at the Utah summit, right? A bunch of you were there, but making those solutions visible and powerful to build the momentum that shows that building back way better than the economy that was killing us all, than what we're trying to go back to, ain't the way forward. But that's a hidden story, and we, you know, we pay attention to the disaster while we miss the awesome. And so at the Drawdown event last night at Climate Week, they showed all these amazing films. And I shared a couple of them. The 2040 film was just, I mean, just saw clips, but they're trying to show not dystopian futures, because it doesn't do anything to motivate anybody. It just bumps you out and saps you of all your power and energy. And they showed these amazing videos of where solutions are really just awesome. They just haven't been scaled. So the solutions are out there. They just haven't been scaled. That's a very different story. It's not to take away from the devastation that is definitely happening to some communities around this country, but it you know, if the focus stays there, we don't actually lift up the work that needs to be done and actually scale it and implement it. So, you know, that's where I draw also a lot of hope from, is that we're critical to that success. We just don't totally all know it yet, nor do we have the resources to get it all done at scale. I get it, I know.
Yeah, no, Frank, I think
we're working on it.
Thank you so much for adding this. And I think it's a good sort of note to end on, because that whole hopefulness, right? And I'm just going to throw out there, I think similarly with the YPCC article, and I think Anna mentioned this, but that came out recently, and just like, we're just making more and more gains in terms of people being worried about climate change the last few years. And so like, that's nice to see also in terms of our work and how it's affecting the country.
I'm going to throw one thing in for a call, like not just for presenters, but I love seeing this stuff. I'd like to talk more in clean calls in the next year about how to get there through teaching collective action and pathways to action, because I feel like we tell these facts to students, and it's nice, we could get there. These visions do exist, these case studies do exist, but I'd love to talk about how to teach that effectively in a way that really connects youth with possibilities. So if you know presentations, presenters and organizations, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it might not be a bad idea to throw that out to the Clean Network too, Patrick, if you have a specific theme to kind of recruit from. Cool. Well, Reb had to jump off, but we are over time, so I'll finish us up here. And thanks everyone so much for joining today. It was a great conversation, and we have a ACE dialogue focus next week, and then a presentation the first week of October, and then we'll have another informal discussion after that. So that's what's coming up the next few weeks. So yeah, I do. I have a friend. Oh, she's just sleeping over there. Somebody put it in the chat. She's been joining us this whole call. Actually, I was kind of surprised. She doesn't usually sleep there. I think I was gone last week, so I think she's appreciating me being back. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.